Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the March meeting of the North Bay Electric Auto Association. And we're going to have very little news, well, lots of times to chat and tell stories. Thanks for David jumping on early to make sure I got the video done correctly, which is a challenge for me every time. I'm going to mention in the chat, I dropped something in the chat where as NBEAA moderator, I start the meeting with exactly the link that I sent out to everybody, and it starts a different meeting. I don't understand that, and if anybody understands enough about Zoom to figure out how we can do this without any hassles in the future, I'd like to hear about that.
So, but do you go to the place where where you basically set up the meeting? No, in fact,
I learned my lesson on.
It says start the meeting from.
And I learned my lesson on that one, not to do that. In fact,
really?
what I actually do is I use the link that I sent to you, so it have exactly the same link, and it still puts me in a different meeting.
Okay, so because I recently hosted a meeting of some old colleagues of mine from way back, and I used my wife's account, and I did that, and it worked just fine. So
okay. Maybe I'll try that the next time. But well, I'll come up to that. And next meeting, actually, somebody else will host because I expect to be flying around the country. Anyway, today we have the regular schedule, and then Woody's going to cover legislative update. So let's start with introductions, who you are, how you get around, and we're going to go backwards again. Cecilia, who the heck are you? How do you get around?
Hi, I'm Cecilia. I get around in a 2018 Model 3, and otherwise I don't get around that much.
I'm hoping we all start getting around a little bit more now. Bernie. You're on mute, Bernie.
Yeah, nothing's changed at my house. Still got the Model 3 and then Leaf, and the house is all electric, and we got collectors on the roof. Still like to get a battery at some point. Other than that, we're pretty well set.
All right. And Brad.
Yeah, I'm Brad Morrison. I live in Santa Rosa, and I mostly drive around in a 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid.
Okay. Zeno.
Zeno Sveiling in Sebastopol. I have a Honda Insight, 19, quite a while ago, like an old one.
Sonia.
Sonia Carey. I have a Tesla Model 3 and a Chevy Volt. I had a rat problem in the Volt for a while. There's a motor oil cap that is like just the perfect size of a nest. So there's an advantage of a Bolt over a Bolt. So there's no nice warm engine block with a little recessed motor oil cap. And I'm going to Monterey soon. That's my big trip plan, much smaller than yours, Jerry.
Yeah, well, okay. By the way, before the meeting, we were all talking about our rat problems. So that's why Sonia brought that up. Woody.
Good morning, everyone. Woody Hastings here. Still, well, I'd say on average, I leave the house maybe twice a week still, only since I work from home. But anyway, when I do drive, it's still the old 2013 Chevy Volt with a V as in Victor. And can I just say, I don't know if others are having the problem, sounds like Sonia is, the screen is very blurry. The slides, it's very blurry.
Not sharp for me.
Sharp for me.
Okay, then never mind. I'll just live with it.
Woody and I live near each other, so maybe that's it.
Is yours blurry too, Sonia?
Yeah.
Okay. Lowell.
Yeah, getting around in my my Tesla Model S and my Leaf. I get out fairly often, several times a week. I looked at it recently. I put over 8,000 miles on the Model S last year. So of course, I've taken some drives down to Long Beach and back, and Yosemite and other things like that. So that's added on to it. But Yeah, other than that, things are pretty much the same as usual.
David Heacock.
Been driving can you hear me?
Yeah.
Been driving my wife's 2007 Saturn Vue hybrid. Got my electric Vane, which because of gas prices, I guess I'm going to have to put back together again and start driving that. But when I have it together, I drive my electric Vane, and I probably drive less than 3,000 miles a year. So you can do a lot of that in an electric car easy.
Yeah. David Harris.
Yes, I think I reported last month that the Bolt has its new battery pack. I haven't taken it to a fast charger to see what the charging graph would look like. That's really the question that GM hasn't said anything about, is whether the new one charges any faster. But that is a big issue with taking road trips.
Bill.
Yeah, we still have a Kia Soul 2016 model. A lot of miles on it, and we love it, but we're going to be getting a new electric car this year for sure. And there's a lot to choose from, so it's going to take a lot of research and whatnot. And I might have mentioned last month I was going to meet somebody to have my 1950 Chevy pickup, which I use a lot to do work with, fixed. But I still haven't gotten it fixed. But Monday I get it back to my old mechanic in Petaluma, who finished his COVID stint.
Oh, jeez.
And will be able to repair it. Whereas 6 other places I went to, nobody could do anything.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
I even looked into getting a Rivian pickup and get on the list. Of course, then I found out it was $70,000.
Uh-huh.
So that's off the chart. And otherwise, doing okay.
Okay. Mike, you just jumped in, so you're next.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Sorry, just running a little late this morning, but I maybe have one little update to give on the Ford Lightning truck reservation I have, but other than that, not too much different than last month.
Okay. And I'm Jerry Glazer, and I'm still driving my 2018 Nissan Leaf, which is worth a lot more than what I just bought it for. I've looked at getting an EV6, the Kia, and I've been working with a dealer down in Marin, and it sounded really great until he mentioned that on top of MSRP, that they wanted to add $6,000 or $7,000, and that now the $45,000 car somehow would come in at $60,000. But I can't test drive it because they have none for test driving. I just have to order one, buy one, and see how well it drives.
That's what the same story my son has been getting from his considerable efforts to buy an electric car.
I've got multiple
Each
friends
time when
saying,
it got right down to it,
Mhm.
they added money on, and they basically said, you have to come to this dealership, and drive away with the car. And I guess if you don't like it, you could come back and give it back if you don't like it at that point.
well, nobody said anything about giving it back after you gave them the money. So
Right, I know.
We can call it a lemon after 3, and you got 3 days, don't you, to return it?
yeah. If it's a lemon, then I guess you have to prove it's a lemon. But so right now the prices on electric vehicles are irrational, and I have to admit, I'm doing construction on this apartment over my garage, and so mostly what I've been driving have been rental trucks to carry several tons of sheetrock and vans. I'm learning about gas prices for the first time ever. Diesel, $6.60 a gallon. So it's not cheap driving around with fuel. It's pretty weird, in fact. But all the prices on just about everything are wacko. They're either very high someplace or very low. And in one case, I went to one store where if you buy from the store online, it's $1,299 for something. But if you buy it in the store, it's $1,679. And they couldn't explain that to me. So, oh, okay. Yeah, somebody else want to jump in, or we move forward?
Did we hear from Bernie? Or
Yeah, we did.
Sorry, Bernie. Hi.
Yeah, I was second or third, I think.
Okay, on to the chapter business. General stuff, not much of this has changed. We have had a couple more people join the group. I haven't necessarily joined EAA. I've got 3 people who have renewed. Any of you that are questionable, check and make sure if you've renewed your EAA membership. And we still have this balance. Bruce isn't there to talk to us about this. Sonia, you, Bruce, and I need to, and probably another person, need to contact EVA and get all of the logins changed and protections changed. Reminding everybody, send in news articles that you've read. This has been the slowest month in 4 years.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going back to the previous slide. So we have a balance of $6,280.
Uh-huh.
That money is sitting there.
Uh-huh.
I became a member of the financial committee of the Bicycle Coalition.
Uh-huh.
And so I started reading up on financial management, and it noted that a lot of nonprofits are they're risk averse. They sit on this money, and it doesn't really, it's not justified by like cash flow issues or anything like that. So I really feel that we need to do something with the money. It's just sitting there. And every month we kind of looking at the number, and it maybe adds a little bit, but we need to.
So Zeno, let me just point something out so you can stop. We have no control over that money.
Let me finish.
Okay.
So we have been talking about doing something with this money. So I think we should take that more seriously.
Okay. But that money is sitting at the national or international organization. It is allocated to us because of the way our membership is. And as long as we have 2 officers and keep our alignment with the national EVA, then that money is still available to us. And that's money as a result of memberships that were paid to the EVA. Now, what they do with the money, I have no idea.
No, we can do something with that money.
Okay.
We can use it for expenses, and I would agree, Zeno. I think with Bruce becoming our treasurer, we can, talk about that as a group and see if we can't disperse some of it for good use.
So what is the process for withdrawing the money?
That's
We're
part of
gonna
what
learn
we're going
that.
to discover. And
Okay.
Mike knows part of that, right?
Yeah, there's a form. Basically it's mostly a reimbursement system. It doesn't always have to be a reimbursement, but I think we've mostly used it as reimbursement to say you fill out the form and you have to have your officers, sign it, and then you send it in, and then they send you back a check.
Okay.
And added to that, so I got a message of the organization, the national, like 2 days ago, and it said that there's money available for each chapter for a particular purpose, which was, I believe, Electric Automobile Day or something like that.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed.
So that's another thing that has to do with finances and whether the club could kind of up its activity beyond the monthly gathering.
Let me get a little further in the presentation, because there's some places where we can talk to that, and some frustrations I had as president, and probably frustrations I had after Alan said, could you take the load off of me, which is 4 years ago. News, anyway, I would still bring the point. Send in news. David Heacock was telling me about an article that was covering his vehicle. And it would have been nice if he had sent it in. I've asked him to send it in to us so we can include it in the news.
I mean,
Last
I think the problem is, for me, is that it's not that there really is too much news. There's just a superabundance of news. There's an enormous amount of things happening all the time that are relevant to our concerns. It's like, how do I pick from this blizzard of news and to pick the things that matter, matter or should be presented at this meeting? It's almost random. When you look at what we do present at any given meeting, even if it's a lot, it's just a fraction of what's out there, and it's a random selection of that.
Yeah, I mean, when I put the program together and have been putting it together, it's what was interesting to people. And I have to admit, since I'm doing a construction project, I've been consumed in that. And so I haven't been reading that much. And a lot of the articles I might find, or Alan used to find, that were interesting things and showing significant changes going forward. Our last meeting.
Can I follow up on that? So I made a proposal how to.
We're going to get there.
Are we going to discuss?
Yes, we're going to get there.
And Woody has his hand up.
I missed that, Woody.
Thanks. Yeah, I do have, I mean, I have a suggestion on that. I don't know if you want to continue this conversation now, but I mean, I think, for how to sort out what to share of all the, I agree, tons of news out there.
Okay, hang on to it, Woody. Wait a second.
Talk about it later.
I have it scheduled to talk about.
Okay, fine.
All right. And then you can jump in. Okay, anyway, so here was the previous meeting Sonia and David put together on covering light duty trucks. And we have the video. I had to I'm sorry, but I had to redo the video because I had played that one clip. And I had to go back in a video editor and take the clip out because YouTube wouldn't let me post the video that we had recorded. We don't have a speaker yet for April. So let's find a speaker or a video or a discussion topic. One which I had put together a while back was, do you want to have a discussion on what do you look for when you're purchasing an EV? What are the significant things to look for? But think about that. I brought this up, and this is the different groups that we have. If you want to send a note out about something interesting that's happening that you want members of the club to know about, or you want to discuss something, send that to nbaa@googlegroups.com. Don't send it to the team, because at the team, we're putting the program together. Or if there's something we need to organize for the club, it goes to nbaa@googlegroups.com. The discuss is wide open for anybody that belongs to discuss. And I think it was right, Alan's slant was NBEAA Club, which is where we talk about, here we've organized a meeting or we need to do something as a group. That's 138 people. And Alan made sure he wrote to that as infrequently as possible. So the other groups are there to support different kinds of things. Discuss is the one if you want to participate. So people sign up and saying, I'll take emails. In club, everybody gets them because we send them out saying the meeting's on Saturday at 10 o'clock or whatever. The NBA press, and this is in part something where I thought we ought to be spending more money and more time. We set this one up 4 years ago as well, which was a group that would do outreach. And Indeed is one of those places where we might do outreach. I was in a Sebastopol meeting recently and somebody was talking about, Apple Blossom Festival and the parade. Should we have such and such do the parade? Well, should we have a bunch of EVs drive in the parade? I don't know. But I'm hoping at some point we'll put a group together that will focus on that. Returning to Thunderstruck, John's not here to discuss that. We haven't been invited yet. I was across from them at a cabinet shop, and things are starting to look normal. In the county of Sebastopol, the infection rate is down to 17 per 100,000. The target used to be 4. They now no longer require masks in stores, and we can eat in restaurants. By the way, in Spain, if you're in Spain and you're in a restaurant, you must wear a mask even while you're eating. Now, I don't know how they do that. Anyway, going to lots of stores lately, building the apartment. In all the stores, the staff are always wearing masks. So I always feel obligated to put one on, even though it's no longer required in the county. So we'll get an update from John when we'll get invited back to Thunderstruck. Hybrid meetings, a topic for us to discuss today. If we do start meeting in person again, we have members who are remote, and it would be great not to lose those members and still record meetings and do all the things we've been doing that COVID started opening up. I participate with the MTC and also meetings in Sebastopol in a couple of roles I have. And they're all talking about how do we do hybrid meetings after the restrictions of COVID have gone away. You know, let's make it easier so people can participate from remote places. This would take some investigation. And Sonia had suggested that we have a discussion today and a vote today on a target budget for getting equipment or whatever else we might need. One of those things will be a new Zoom license. Bruce paid for it for the first year. Alan paid for it for the second year. If we buy it through the EVA, we actually get a version with more capabilities, and it's the same price. So we should do that, and they'll just take it out of the funds that we have. So we can make an arrangement to do that. And we should identify any network issues that might exist wherever we host the physical meeting. And we haven't talked about that yet either. But I think it would be a good idea for us to put a group together and a vote. Sonia, you want to talk about this too?
Sure. I actually thought that this would be a way to spend some of the money in, you know, in a way where we would be kind of supporting a broader level of participation. I think we all appreciate that. So, you know, my thought was that whatever money we do have at national, we could have some portion of that allocated toward creating a hybrid meeting. And if we don't do it, then we don't really get that broader participation. That, you know, I think would be exciting for all of us to have that. And then, you know, hopefully we'll have quite a bit left over to do things that are more promotional or based on events or things like that. The other thing I was thinking is that, you know, John's not on the call, but if we hoped or anticipated that we could get on site by May or June, you know, is there a fast track process to selecting a ballpark budget and approving it today so that we can kind of pick a couple people to, you know, make decisions about equipment. So hopefully that tees it up well for you, Jerry.
Okay. And by the way, some of the equipment that I've seen, because the camera that I'm using right here, I bought 2 years ago. Once we started doing this, thinking I was going to give it to the club, I'm going to keep it now. It's a pretty good camera. I don't know if the mic's that good. And I was looking for sound systems, et cetera, that would work well, because we want to be able to, everybody always complains, I want to be able to see everybody, but I want to see the presentation as well. And you want that to work. And I actually saw something recently, and I put it in one of our meetings, $1,000 microphone system and camera system that one can get for meetings. My financial advisor uses it. And when somebody speaks, the camera swings over and focuses in, gets the sound right and all of that stuff. And that's the kind of budget I'm thinking, is that if we identify maybe something like $1,500 as a beginning budget for a group to work with, to identify equipment or services. I have no idea what the bandwidth is at Thunderstruck, whether, you know, that's going to work out well.
Yep.
Any other thoughts from folks?
Well, it seems that if we do that, we also have to attract people to participate, right? And I mean, we don't really have a lot of like social media presence. I did that for a while for Slow Food Russian River. And we had a budget to like push messages out, not just to the people that already were friends with the site, but also you could identify a target group by their interests. So I'm sure there's an interest group called electric transportation. And that would be a way to simultaneously work with the this idea about the hybrid meeting to attract people at least to the presentation part of this of these meetings.
I think that's a great idea if anyone wants to work on outreach. But what I would suggest is, is it worthwhile making it easier for Bruce or Caleb or David even to join a hybrid meeting? In the meantime, is that worth us working on, having the equipment and doing the hybrid meeting?
I'll point out, we have, believe it or not, on the Google, the NBEAA club Google group, we have members and they've been presenters too, Washington State, Oregon, Southern California, Ohio, London, England, that have joined us.
This is the interested parties group, right?
And that's what Alan always calls interested parties.
right?
Exactly. They don't belong to the EVA, but they do belong to the North Bay Electric Auto Association, and will drop in from time to time, either to give a presentation because of their business. They want us to know about what they're doing in electric vehicles, their environmental area, or they're jumping in to find out what's happening, what we're looking at.
If I can add, so I like to watch videos of EV related things and being able to see things like in person, of a review of a new EV or some components review of batteries. And I think I like the hybrid aspect because it takes me an hour to drive up there, but
Yeah.
I like doing that because it's more of a hands-on. If there were times when I couldn't make the meeting, but see, if we're talking about a car or something like we used to, did a review or of anything related to EVs, that there would be more people, I think, that would be interested in that because they can watch it, the video of the actual thing we're talking about rather than congressional legislation and all that kind of stuff. So that's just my 2 cents.
So how do people feel about a budget to start with of $1,500? Are we
Sounds
willing
good.
to allocate that?
Yeah.
I'm in favor of it.
How about a show of hands? And you can use your real hands. I'll look.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see Mike Newell, so here you have to use a virtual hand. Yes, 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 yes. Cecilia, what do you think? No? Oh, I lost Cecilia.
Uh-oh.
Where'd she go?
Yes, I think that's.
Oh, there you are. Got you. Okay, thank you. All right, it looks like unanimous. Okay, for our new president, so our budget's $1,500 that's been approved by the by the team. We do need a group to work on it as well. And if you would send an email to NBEAA team saying, hey, I want to work on it too. It can be a casual group working virtually. Sonia, do you want somebody to steer that, you think?
Well, I was hoping that we might talk a little bit about, people who are interested in being on the hybrid team, because if we have someone putting the deck together and doing the presentation, separating that from running the equipment would be really nice.
Yeah.
I know, unfortunately, we don't have Bruce around locally. So maybe Bruce would want to be involved at a distance, but that would be only one side of the team. So any interest in that?
Yeah, I think I could go out there and look at is there good Wi-Fi? Would it even work? Is the space appropriate? And that kind of thing. Before we buy anything, we probably need to kind of do that kind of groundwork.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, or at least.
I don't think we want to leave from Thunderstruck. I mean, this has been, I've only been with the club for 5 years, 6 years. How long has the club been meeting at Thunderstruck?
Time.
Long time.
A long time. Okay.
Yeah. And we used to stream video from there a little bit, but I think what we're trying to figure out is, does it have that extra capacity to really run a Zoom. So we know it has minimal capacity already. Maybe John can help us, or we can do a little recognizance.
Brad, the answer, by the way, does Thunderstruck have wireless internet? The answer is yes, because we've streamed videos into, that's downloading.
I see
In the case
Celia's,
of the video, we're uploading.
I see Cecilia's hand up. Jerry, I don't know if you can see that.
Where? I'm sorry.
Cecilia's hand is up, or it was.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, that was to raise my hand
Okay.
per request, but I'm good.
Thanks for picking that up, Woody. I have a hard time looking at the screen and everything. And I meant to, and we should do this on a regular basis in the future. I should have a co-host. In fact, Sonia, you're going to become a co-host all of a sudden. Wherever I find you. I may have to put my glasses on and make the shiny thing.
Well, a question with regard to capacity of the internet connection. I mean, I'm wondering whether the 5G cell phone bandwidth is reaching the point where it becomes an alternative.
I don't know. I have a lot of people join from their phones.
Yeah, I guess for the phone, it depends on if you have, if your phone, if you're using a personal phone, if it's like going to get like, the bandwidth is going to get dropped down if it goes over like a certain limit, or, and then if it's going to be like a club expense, then that's going to be a recurring expense.
All right, more on this topic, because there's some more business topics.
So back to Sonia, what exactly were you asking when you asked? We want to ask what people would like to be part of this, such committee or group?
Yeah, a team working on this.
Yeah, and
Okay.
ongoing. I think that if we want to conduct a hybrid meeting, someone has to kind of run the equipment and someone has to do the speaking, and you know, and I think we can pull this all off if we just kind of split up the little details. I appreciate Zeno's offer so far, and I was hoping, Jerry, that you might be a little involved as well.
Yeah, I'll work on it as well. I'll volunteer to work on it. One of the things that
I'll help out too. I don't know how much. I don't have any great expertise in the subject, but
neither do I. So you figure it out. One of the things that with COVID, we were introduced to a musician, Emmett Cohen, who does a jazz show from his apartment every Monday evening in New York City. And we watch it regularly. And if you go back 2 years ago when they first started, it was Emmett with his laptop and his trio playing because they couldn't go on tour anymore. And today now the video is mixed, the sound is in different places. They have a separate person who puts it all together. It's, you know, they're in show number 80, you know, or 88. Okay, I'm going to move forward on this. Office rotation. So Alan was president emeritus, and I am president, but I'm going to stop being president starting April 1st. And Sonia Carey will become president, and we're looking for a new vice president. And we have a nomination for Lowell. Do we have any other nomination for vice president?
I can nominate myself.
You can nominate yourself. Good. So we have two candidates now, Lowell and Cecilia. How would we like to do the vote?
You know, Lowell and Cecilia, do you want to share it also? Is that a third option?
It's an option for me.
Well, I'm just going to point one thing out. Well, they could do this too. Yeah, Sonia, good move. Because Sonia off the hook starting April 1st, 2023, and the vice president then takes over the president's role. And so co-presidents works for everybody too?
Sure.
The other alternative would be to have
I'm sorry.
a first vice president and a second vice president, and then you have Two people in line.
Yeah, you can figure out how much you want to be involved.
Yeah. Woody?
Thank you. Yeah, no, what you just said confused me all of a sudden, Jerry, because you said two presidents, I think.
No,
You
what
meant
would
two
happen
vice
after 1 year,
presidents, right?
you would end up with two presidents. The vice president becomes president.
Well,
after a year.
no, you could just cross that bridge when you get there and work it out so that only one of them is going to end up being the president. It doesn't, there's no reason why we would be somehow forced to have two presidents,
Okay.
right?
It's, you know, I think it's an abundance of riches, and I appreciate both of you nominating yourselves, because I think the important part is to kind of, you know, think about the succession and, you know, who's going to take on the president position for a year. It's
Yeah.
really nice thinking that you're going to rotate out as well, you know, and so I really appreciate Jerry for thinking about using the Master Gardener methodology here. And so, you know, before we vote, I just thought, you know, everyone could have a star. We could just say, yeah, let's have both Cecilia and Lowell be vice president. That could be an option.
Cecilia and Lowell. Cecilia, you comfortable with that?
Can I add something?
Wait, let me get the answer to my question. Wait, let me get the answer to my question first. Cecilia, are you comfortable with that?
I mean, I would be comfortable with it, but also I think that, you know, don't want to like use up people before spreading them out over, like, you know, to do the thing, as I think that was already brought up. So I'm fine either way.
Okay, Zeno, and Lowell, are you comfortable with it?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm offering myself is I really want to see this club continue to function and us be part of the larger organization. And I know it's a requirement that we have a president and a vice president. And I as I said in my email, I don't feel I have at this point all of the knowledge and capability I would like to have if I were to become president. But I'm going to have a nice runway for getting that, and some practice and some opportunity to think about it. But that's the reason I'm doing it. I certainly have no other than simply wanting to be assist in the continuation of this organization. That's the end. That's the sum of my motivation here.
That's great. That's great. Zeno, now to your point.
Well, I wonder whether the bylaws allow this. I'm also the vice president. It doesn't do a lot as long as you're not president. So, and we're such a small organization in terms of active people that I feel if people want to do something, there are other kind of things that you already went over in terms of things that people could take on. So I'm kind of hesitant to go this direction. What's purpose does it serve besides not having to vote, right? Is voting kind of embarrassing? So
yeah. I have to admit to you, voting is kind of embarrassing when you're in a small group. This week with the MTC, we voted for the vice president or the vice chair for the group that I'm on, and somebody nominated themselves, and then there's 20 people voting, and there was 19 for one person and one for the other, which is somewhat difficult. Woody?
Thanks. Yeah, to try to maybe move it forward, I'd like to put a motion on the table.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we accept both nominations, Cecilia's self-nomination, and however Lowell got nominated, I don't know, but just to accept both of them, very thankfully that they're both willing to step up, and we have co-vice presidents. That's the motion.
I guess we're supposed to ask for a second.
I'll second.
Okay.
I think
Any discussion
good to
on?
have
We've
Jeff
had
on
some
the
discussion
team.
on it already. So, any more discussion? Otherwise, we'll have a vote on whether we have co-vice presidents.
Maybe this is I don't know, irrelevant at this point, but what happens if the co-vice presidents disagree on something? Like, is there ever a decision that needs to be made where there's agreement that needs to be achieved?
Here, having been president and with my vice president here, the number of decisions that we've had to make without consulting with everybody in the group has been, as far as I know, that number. Is that right, Sonia?
I'd say 0. I appreciate Zeno's concern about the bylaws, and we might run into a situation where we say, how will we decide who should be president next year? It won't be quite as simple as the Master Gardener methodology, if we want just a single president next year, but I feel confident we can figure that out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Bruce?
I was just I missed the part about the Master Gardener model, so this might be repetitive, but there's an organization called the Coastal Nestorine Research Federation, which my late wife was the president for, and their model is 2 years as a sort of president in waiting. I forget what the title is. And then there's the active president and the emeritus president. So the active president would be actively reaching out to the president behind to coach them, to ask them to fill in, possibly even have the emeritus president come back and fill in. But it left a continuity where the workload was distributed, and the clear commander is the one in the middle, but the folks behind and ahead offer contributions and also get trained along the way. And I think we're only required to have 2 officers, right? So then we could
that's right.
skip the vice president, and just have a secretary or treasurer. I guess we should have a treasurer. I think there's
and we have a treasurer because you got voted in.
When was that? Well,
that was last meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first thing is send me all your money now, and that way I won't have to bother you.
So that is essentially the Master Gardener model. And when Alan was leaving the area, and he said, you have to do something, that's when I volunteered to be president. But my condition was we established this model so that nobody got stuck in the same place that Alan did. How many years were you president?
I was only like maybe 2.5 years, something like that. Mostly while Alan was getting ready to travel around, and we had fun doing a lot of outdoor activities, going some places. But anyway, it is a lot of work. And before I forget, I want to thank Jerry for all of the sort of advancements in organization and this whole concept. So thank you, Jerry.
Okay, Cecilia. I love your hand, by the way.
Thank you. So I one of the reasons that I wanted to promote myself is that, this is like Women's History Month. I thought it'd be cool, to have this organization run by, doing, I'm not making assumptions about your gender, Sonia, but so that was like, I thought that would be kind of, a neat thing. Not to say that, it wouldn't be cool to have 3 people kind of running it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it hasn't been lost on me that Cecilia and I represent the female gender here, and so that can be pretty exciting, and it would be really fun to kind of run the program with you, Cecilia. And so if Woody has this kind of motion on the table, if we want, it sounds like we're just not that comfortable voting. We'd rather kind of come up with an idea for why we might choose a path forward. So I don't know where to take it from here. Woody, why don't you help us on process?
Well, we actually do a vote now on Woody's motion, I think. Correct, Woody?
Well, we could, and I'm comfortable with that. It sounded like I'm hearing people say that people are somehow uncomfortable voting. I'm comfortable. I guess folks might be just as uncomfortable. My suggestion was going to be, and then I kind of realized that it would have the same dynamic, which was to just, we could just go by consensus and only call on anyone who has a concern that's so strong that they want to block consensus. But that person would perhaps feel, put on the spot. So I don't know.
I'm going to put my hand up too, because my comment would be this. If we vote on the motion, whether we have two vice presidents or not, I'd like to keep the system of president, vice president, and somebody ready to volunteer next year to be vice president, as opposed to looking at two vice presidents right now, and set up that pattern. And we started with it, and I'd like to see it continue to go like that, a little bit less casual. And if it is the embarrassment factor, then I would suggest the following, that you can send your vote to my email and I can count them.
I think we can all vote. Speaking for myself, I'm comfortable voting. And I also am evolving to understand through our conversation that maybe it is helpful to have a singular VP this year, so that we know that there's a second VP kind of waiting, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it does create that clarity, and we all like that.
Well, first of all, Woody has a motion on the table. We should vote on the motion unless he wants to withdraw it.
I think I don't want to withdraw it. I think I'd be fine with, the rules are rules, but we've got two people willing to step up, and there might be times when, someone's unavailable or someone else. Anyway, I would just like to keep the motion on the.
Okay, so I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of us having two vice presidents, please raise your hand. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And all of those opposed, please raise your hand. Wait, I've got some people voting for both. Just
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
4. Okay, all abstaining. Bill, we don't know how to count you because you voted all 3 times.
It might, I was muted. I was trying to say it might be a little helpful if you take the slide down so we can all see.
I'm sorry, I'll do that right there. Yeah. You guys can, we'll do the vote again. Just a sec. I forget that you don't get to see everybody. I do, regardless. Okay, one more time. All those in favor of having multiple vice presidents, raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I counted 7. Is that the count everybody else has? Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those abstaining, please raise your hand. 1.
All right.
Okay, we're going to have 2 vice presidents. Congratulations to the 2 vice presidents. Sonia has to figure it out next year.
We'll all figure it out. I really appreciate working through this, and what an abundance. Thanks, Cecilia, and thanks, Lowell.
Okay, share. There we go. Okay, now Zeno. Is the time for your idea.
Right, so I'm thinking I was invited to help out a bit with creating the deck that carried us out with COVID, like last time. And so I started thinking about this a bit more. Also, going back to my experience doing a similar thing on Facebook for Slow Food Russian River, where I moderated the Facebook page, and I had a spreadsheet there, and I had different categories of things that we want to cover, that we want to associate our organization with, issues in the movement. And so that was very helpful for me because I was able to kind of find what seemed to be the most relevant thing around that topic at in a week or so. Right now, this is just once a month meeting, but one way to navigate this overflow of information could be this what I did earlier in Slow Direction River, which was making a list of like 12 topics that we want to find the best, most interesting, most exciting news item for, right? So this would take going back to some of the old news presentations and classifying the items in different categories. And then you could also say, oh, we have great things for such and such. Like 2 weeks before the meeting, I could reach out to everybody saying, but I'm still looking for something interesting around this other topic. Anybody knows anything? So it's just the idea that if you divide up a task or a question in different categories, it's often easier to come up with ideas and brainstorming, or in this case, monitor the flow of news. There are all kinds of tools around this. You can like set up a Google alert on that topic, and you get like the news items for that week listed, that Google the most interesting, or other ways, and the membership could still bring ideas in. So we would have a number of subject areas, and then we would have maybe 2 people or 3 people taking on like 30% of the subject areas. And then there would be somebody who would assemble the whole thing. And I'm not sure from Gary's, what he said today, is he going to continue moderating these meetings? Is he going to continue putting a deck together? Or is that going to the next president, or even a vice president, or somebody else? So, but that's kind of the idea, to divide it up in topics, to have somebody responsible for selecting the best item for a topic, for like 30% of the topics, a number of people that would work on that, and that would done, and then work with one person who can do the slide deck manipulation and has some sense of fonts and pictures and maybe some
Okay.
capacity.
Okay, Cecilia, you want to jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, this is a good use case for having multiple vice presidents.
That was it? Okay.
That was it, but
Okay,
it's
Sonia?
like a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sonia.
I like the idea. I think from my own personal interest, I'm interested in stats, and I'm also interested in new models. There are other areas of interest, and I appreciate your interests. I love hearing about alternatives to driving and urban planning and things like that you have interest in. So I would really encourage us to do something very lightweight, but the concept of us possibly all getting good at just creating a slide. I think there's an easy way to copy and paste a bunch of slides together at the end of the month and put the deck together. I would not encourage us to necessarily fill in gaps. If there's nothing about new models or no one feels like doing stats, that's fine. But I saw Woody's note in the chat, around some of these areas that we might want to really focus on, like local news. And that makes sense as well. So I want to also speak to who's going to do the slides and who's going to do the presentations later. I feel like Jerry has an option of participating in any of those areas, but I have a responsibility for being the person who, runs the meetings and puts the slides together for the most part. I think that's probably something that I can offer to Jerry. And also, we haven't had that conversation yet, Jerry, so we can kind of talk about it.
So let me jump in and let me answer from my point of view. The original idea when Alan was frustrated was that we would divide up the work. And Alan and I had this discussion many times, and we found out that, okay, we'll divide up the work. And pretty much what happened was most of the heavy lifting as far as getting the program ready went from Alan to me. So it never got divided. We have NBEAA team, and the intention was always that the team would collaborate, put it together. Even when people would send in articles, many people send a link with nothing else on it as to why it was interesting, whatever. The heavy lifting portion is when you're reading the article, what was it somebody wanted to be reported on, and whether your idea, Sonia, people would learn how to do a slide. They send the slide in, might reformat it at the end, but basically the content is there, and that's pretty fast. So I will also come to the point of president versus program. And I think that program should have been rotation anyway. I don't like the idea of the president being responsible for the program because, quite frankly, from the amount of work to do for the club, the program creation is a lot more work than the president's job. I had to do virtually nothing as the president, very few things. And then finally, what areas am I interested in? I'm interested in environmental areas. That's one of them. I'm interested in battery technology. And I'm also interested in heavy trucks. So I'd be willing to work on all of those at a content level. And I don't have a problem with putting the program together if the content is in a form like Zeno did. It would be nice if the format of the slides was consistent so there's less editing to do. But even that wasn't terrible to do. I'm getting really fast at it. Any other comments on this topic? Well, as the new president, you're going to follow up on this, right?
I'm going to follow up on it. And I think that we can keep carrying this forward. But if people have an interest, I think that one thing we can do for next month is continue to use the team group email. And for those of you who are confident, feel free to create any form of slide deck you want and, drop your information into a slide. And I can follow with individuals one-on-one if they want some kind of support for deciding how to create a slide deck to start. Does that sound
I think it would be good to also have a we all have our different news sources. So I think sharing what our news sources are, so we can have a kind of compendium of potential news sources for us to whatever our interests are, to survey, to see if there are things that we find relevant. I mean, mine are fairly limited, but there's lots there still. But I'm sure that there are many others I could be including in the repertoire of things I go look for things,
Maybe we can, I could start a process where I just share a Google Doc with a few links, and maybe people can add to that Google Doc, and I'll share that in the team.
Sure, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay, great.
Let me get in the right context here. Oops. Back to the truck idea. This came in from Bruce. I don't know what the status is on this, Bruce, but I went a step and I asked my insurance agent. So if a club owned a truck, how do we insure it? Now, as a club owner in the past of airplanes, that was easy. My insurance agent said, I have no idea how you insure it at that point. Bruce, you want to jump in? So I just want to put the slide here so you could just talk to this. Oops. Sorry.
Well, actually, I was going to just bring, I was at an invited breakfast this morning. That's why I was a little late getting here. And I just wanted to give an update on the status of this particular truck and some of the dynamics and the reluctance of the young people to venture out. I encourage them to log in or whatever. So what I might have to do is just edit out certain things that are, important to them at the moment. But if you want the status right now, this is a little off your topic, but they've dropped the old battery pack out, and just yesterday they split the coffin open to reveal, I was expecting like black truck batteries. It looks like something close to AGM, like lead acid, very nice, shiny looking stuff. I can send you some photo updates. The new pack has been delivered, is right alongside there, and the new pack is a lithium iron phosphate pack that Lanny Thomason put together, and I had carted up here. So the pack, just the pack, cost me about $10,400. The truck cost me $3,000. I found a replacement taillight for a 2000 Ranger, which seems to be the same model. So they got that fixed, and they've got the J1772 adapter connected in. They're going to put the pack in soon, and I'm hoping it'll go smoothly. And then I've got a Toyota RAV4 in waiting that's also got a battery upgrade that Lanny tells me is a little more difficult. So I need to contact him and find out what his experiences are, because he's done several.
So, Bruce,
Okay.
it sounds like if you document this, it would be kind of a nice talk to have one.
Yeah, yeah, and I might have to do it myself, but the teacher is really good. Sam Garson worked for he's a friend of mine. I keep blanking on his name. The guy that found the Titanic. He's got a foundation, and Sam worked in sort of the marine sciences stuff. The kids really like him, and he's got to kind of like figure it out yourself. But these are the safety issues. Come to me if you get stymied. So I've got some pictures of them splitting open the coffin and talking about next steps. But
well, anyway, the reason that I put this slide here was we did have the discussion several meetings ago about a pickup truck. I'm still interested in the idea. If anybody else knows how to dig further on how to do insurance, if we wanted to do this, I'd be willing to put money in for as a club a pickup. And I have an accounting method that I've used for flying that worked really well, where we would pay for the use of the truck, but it would go back into the club. Anyway, I just wanted to put that one there. The one other point I was gonna make on this, when I showed this to Caleb, and we're seeing another slide here on the lithium iron phosphate, he's used lithium iron phosphate before in Maine, and he was very disappointed because they don't work as well in cold weather. And he said, that's a difficult thing to deal with. Woody, your hands up.
Yes, it is. Thanks. I'm just curious about what the idea is for the club owning a truck. What's the purpose?
Okay, so the whole idea was this, and maybe you missed that meeting. A lot of us talk about why is it so many people here have pickup trucks. Well, you use a pickup truck from time to time. Even day before yesterday, I needed a truck. I went looking to get a truck, going to rent a truck. I had to try 5 different places. Having a club electric pickup truck that was available was the basic idea, where we could all share it. You need it for these chores, you do whatever, and it would be a club thing.
So the idea is that it's available for all of the club members. It's sort of a perk of being a club member in a way, right?
Yep.
As opposed to, my first thought was that it would be somehow used for promotional, and I guess it could be for promotional purposes and whatnot, but that's not the main purpose.
Thrust.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, EV events and offers. This can go fast, so we're going to be on time. We had no EV events or offers other than that one. Here was the one news item that came in. David sent this one in. David Harris sent this one in, which was the cost of, that's supposed to say charging. I did send this out, and you guys usually edit things. There was only one slide, and I still got typing wrong. EV charging by 2026, what the cost will be, or how much money will be spent on charging. In 2021, I thought this was really interesting numbers. 3.4 billion was spent on EV charging. the forecast is by 2026, that'll be $16 billion spent in charging. 2 million homes have charging stations. They expect that 21 million homes will have charging stations in 4 years. Global hardware sales, 1.8 billion this year, expect 5.5. That's with a decrease in the cost of the sales. And they had the forecast of 1 billion charge sessions in 35 million households in 2026, and that 45% of households will plug into a wall outlet instead of having a station. Now, I've been plugging into the wall outlet for my Leaf because I couldn't get close enough to my charge station because of all the supplies in front of the garage door. And I can't charge up when I leave it in all night long in a 12-hour period. Last night, I moved enough supplies out of the way that I got to my charge station. And by 4 a.m., I was completely charged. That was a 4-hour charge. So it surprised me because I thought that the portable would give me a reasonable amount of charge, but it really doesn't. It really is quite slow.
And also, you drive too far.
Huh?
You drive too far.
Well, I have to take the dog to daycare. I have to pick the dog up from daycare, and then the guys keep sending me to Santa Rosa to go buy supplies, or they send me to Santa Rosa to get me out of their hair. I'm not sure which one it is.
I bet a lot of people can get enough charge out of a 110 outlet for their commute, and then some people like you have daycare far away.
When I've gone on long trips on several occasions, I have either, like when I visited my stepdaughter in Long Beach, I parked my car in their driveway, plugged it in, and left it there for 3 days.
Yeah.
Just plugged in, and it got plenty of charge. When I went to Yosemite, I did the same thing. I plugged it into my cabin for 2 or 3 days while I was sitting there, and it was fine. But you need that kind of time. You need 72 hours or something like that to get a decent amount of charge.
And I need to look at the power rating on the cable that I have from Nissan. It does have a 220 connection as well, but I'm using the 110 connection to plug in. I could have used the 220. I just didn't think to wire up a 220 outlet. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll.
So when they say 16 billion spent in charging or whatever, but is that home charging or is that charging including fast
According
charging?
to the article, it was every place.
Every place. So a combination of all possible ways of charge. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that was the only article we got. And then Caleb shared a video with me.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, these statistics are always more interesting if there's a contrast, right? So in this case, you want to know how much do people spend on gasoline, for example, a year, on average. So you can kind of see where things are going, because what do the numbers mean, right? Why is it like twice as much almost Asia as in the United States? Is that there are more people there? This is per person, per family. Are the families larger, right? So you kind of need to create some context for these numbers to be able to think through.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that was the reason that I broke it. The article didn't necessarily do this. My contrast was this year versus 4 years from now, because what I was looking at is what's the growth rate in EVs. So I wasn't trying to contrast it against what the costs are for other things. I wanted to see what the growth rate was. And I think that was the basic thrust in the article as well.
Okay, well, one of the contrasts I would have liked to see in that article is what percentage of that charging was done with renewable energy and what percent was done with fossil fuel.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, an article doesn't cover that. You have to go with the limits of the article. This was sent to me. I got 2 news things. I only included one. One was the company that Caleb and I worked for has replaced the batteries we used to use. And I gave a talk to the club maybe 5 years ago on the nickel sodium chloride batteries that we used, which you had to raise to 475 degrees Fahrenheit in order for them to be chemically active. And then they went to BMW batteries, and now they have a deal with a company that's providing them lithium iron phosphate batteries. And they just demonstrated with their battery packs now in a F59 of driving 150-mile range, which for them was a reasonable amount for delivery trucks. This one is the company that we supplied batteries, trucks or buses to, that runs all of the buses in many places, but they run all the buses at Google. They run all the buses at Stanford and a number of other places. And the buses that we had made for the city of Mountain View, it was the ABC bus company. They really like Van Hool's. So Van Hool now has a double-decker bus, and they drove it across the country using public charge stations, 2,500 miles. And the link that will be here is the link. Oh, I hope I got the right link and not the mail for the video. I'll double check to make sure the link works. And that's the news and input from the peanut gallery. I think you guys have input enough already. You all agree?
I have a quick update on trucks. I think that there has been kind of in the last 2 days, some information that the chip constraint issue is going to continue more months than originally, originally thought. And that originally they thought that by June or July, there wouldn't be much chip constraint anymore. Now they're extending that outward, so we can keep watching that, but it does affect, everyone's ability to get all types of EVs.
Luckily, they don't make the chips in Russia.
I'd like to raise another subject that it's something I'm curious to know more about. Is we talk a lot about charging rate. That we were saying that's an important thing to know about cars when you're shopping for them. How fast do they charge it at fast chargers, and in particular, and that you need to match your vehicle up, whatever its capacities are with whatever the charging stations have, so to get the full benefit of your vehicle's charging rate. But I think it's ambiguous to talk about it in terms of kilowatt hours. I want to know charging rates in terms of miles per minute of charge. That's something that a consumer can understand. If when you're talking to people about what car they should buy and the kinds of things they should ask about that car, I think one of the things they should be asking is how many miles per minute does this car charge at? Well,
and that's an interesting thing to bring up, because I've seen that now quoted in some of the articles that come out, or some of the ads that come out. And I got that because a friend of mine was employee number 6 at Tesla, and he was saying how great their vehicles were. But then I found out how many miles per kilowatt hour they got, which was 25% less than my car did. So their charge, how fast they would charge up would be less, just because of that.
Right, exactly, yeah. I mean that's a factor. The car and the charger, but yeah, every car should say, all right, I can charge it 250 kilowatt hours. So when I'm going from 20 to 80%. Because it curves off as you start to get into the higher percentages. But in this window, this sweet window of 20 to 80%, how many miles per minute do I get?
Yeah. Woody, your hands up.
Yeah.
It is. Thanks. Guess you're seeing the hands now. Cool. Yeah, no, I like this a lot, and I think that it really should be in terms of what Lowell said, mile per minute, because if we go to start talking about kilowatt hours, that's when you lose people. But I think you would need to slice and dice it, because you'd have to say miles per minute of charge on a level 3, level 2. What are you plugging into?
Right.
But I think speaking about it in terms of miles per minute of charge is a great concept. I like that a lot.
Okay, Cecilia.
Yeah, I put this in the chat, but it's like really important that you're using miles per minute versus, I think Tesla likes to use miles per hour, which is really a useless metric, because if you're not going to charge the same rate over an hour.
Yeah.
So that per minute rate makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I think there is a good meeting for us to have, which is one without a presentation where I had suggested before, how do we buy an EV? What is it we should be asking? What are the questions they go? David, you have your hand
Yeah,
up.
well, Cecilia just mentioned the fact that one of the choices in a Tesla is to have it tell you miles per hour that you're charging at, and that's the instantaneous thing. When you're really charging fast, you're doing like 1,000 miles an hour, right? So, but I did find this in the last couple of weeks, a European website that has charge curves over time for a bunch of different models, and that was very enlightening. They were last year curves, but I think that site will keep that up to date. So I'll spread that link around so you can see there is a tremendous difference in how the fall off rate.
Hey, David, one thing I pointed out earlier in the meeting, if you're going to spread the link around, you want to share it. Remember to send it to NBEAA discuss. If you want us to include it in a presentation, send it to NBEAA team.
Right. Well, I'll send it to a few people and see what you think of how we should deal with it.
Okay, that's fine. Bruce.
Yeah, I just I use miles per hour of plug-in time for this reason. Tell me what you get in miles per minute when you plug into a 110 socket. You're explaining to somebody about EV car charging. Tell me what you get for miles per minute when you plug into a level 2. It becomes really complicated, especially when it comes out to less than a mile a minute.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's easier to use something like 4 for 110, a 20 amp circuit, 4 miles per hour, and something like 16 minutes. And it doesn't matter. They don't, people aren't worried about the variability so much. I mean, people that own electric cars know they charge faster, when the battery's closer to empty and they slow down. It's just, it seems like a negative sell when you're telling people, oh, you don't even get a mile per minute of plug-in at this.
Well, it's not totally homogeneous in any case. I mean, my friend Misha has his Tesla plugged into a 40 amp circuit, but he could plug it into a 50 amp level 2, and it would work better.
You got that same problem with Tesla chargers. I mean, I just got back from Park City, and am I stopping in Wells that's got 350 kilowatt hour chargers versus
kilowatt, not kilowatt hour.
Kilowatt chargers, or is it or do I stop in Elko, which has the slower ones? There's all those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
And the temperature, even, we up there, it was oftentimes down in the low 40s and on my drive, we see. So I think that they charge a lot slower that way, particularly other cars like Leafs. But I mean, we do, the Tesla does preheat to the batteries.
Hey, I'm going to move us along because I saw we were 2 minutes over, and now we've bullshitted enough that we're 20 minutes over, and it's time for the presentation.
Oh.
What did you want me to hit the buttons for you, or do you want to take it?
I think I'd rather take it. Thanks.
Okay.
I'll share my screen.
A second, let me drop my share.
Yeah, it says host disabled screen share. So if you
I
could
didn't
make-
disable it, I just didn't enable it. Just a second.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay, you should be able to see my screen.
We got it.
Good. Well, okay. I feel like I've absorbed as much information as I can in one meeting, and I'm spent. But here we go. Good luck absorbing. I hope this is helpful. Appreciate the opportunity to share some info here. So, before I get rolling, just so folks know, maybe I'll just go back to the intro slide. So for folks that don't know me super well, I work during the day at the Climate Center, which is a climate and energy not statewide policy nonprofit. And every legislative session, I help track bills related to climate and energy and clean transportation. And so monitoring about, it's getting close to 60 bills at this point. And so I'm just going to go through a handful of them today. And so I hope this is useful, helpful information. I've got a lot of hyperlinks in the presentation. So if it's, we can share it with everyone, and you'll have all the sort of links to if you want to drill down deeper on anything in here. So first, just so you got some context framing the calendar this year, it's a shorter calendar, legislative calendar this year because it's an election year. Usually they go through October, just goes through September this year, and the deadline for new bills was close to a month ago, back in February. The next big deadline is for the bills to each, Assembly bills and Senate bills to pass out of their House of Origin. And then they flip over to the next House. And then the final day for bills to be voted off their, out of the floor is August 31st, and then the governor has till September 30th to sign bills. So what I tweezed out from all the bills out there are ones that relate specifically to electric vehicles or electric vehicle charging. And so I'll start with the assembly bills. And these are ones that are all related to multi-unit dwellings. So we've got AB 965, which is actually a 2021 year bill. The legislature goes in 2-year cycles, so we're in the second year of a 2-year cycle. So this bill was held over from last year. I think I did talk about it. AB 9 revolves around building standards regarding electric vehicle charging at multi-unit dwellings. And there are a number of bills that relate to multi-unit dwellings. So usually in the course of the session, there will be some sort of wrangling and working things out, and sometimes some bills fall by the wayside. So not all of these bills will make it through. Sometimes actions in a given bill will be looped into another one. So all these bills will be in play and be, under being amended and whatnot in the various committees that they go through. So the first one, AB 965, Levine, our own local assembly member on multi-unit dwellings. AB 1738 by Berner Horvath is all around making sure that when a multi-unit dwelling and some other types of facilities, when there is, say, an upgrade or a remodel or reconstruction of any kind, any sort of opportunity, they call it cost-effective trigger point, that EV charging needs to be looked into as part of that for efficiency purposes. Then AB 1814, this one relates to community choice agencies, like in our area, Sonoma Clean Power, and maybe some of you folks are in Marin, that would be Marin Clean Energy. There's about 22, 23 community choice agencies around the state now. And so this bill would enable community choice agencies to tap into Charge Ahead California initiative funds. Currently, right now, the investor-owned utilities are the only ones that are enabled by statute to use these funds for electric vehicle charging infrastructure is what we'd be talking about here. So it's tapping into that for charging infrastructure purposes. So hold on just a second. Okay. AB 1873, another Berner Horvath one. This is tax credits for installation of electric vehicle EV charging. EVSE is electric vehicle service equipment. Most of you probably know that. In multi-unit dwellings. And if you look at the details of the bill, it's really for sort of larger entities that do that kind of thing. AB 2061 is all around requiring that any entity that receives public funds to install a publicly accessible charging facility, that they need to do some reporting on the status of that charging station indefinitely, that they need to report on the downtime, uptime, repair schedule, because there's an emerging situation, as most of us know, with you find a charging station on PlugShare and you go to it and it's been abused by someone, or it's not operating and whatnot. So this just applies in the case of those that have received public funding for their installation. AB 2075 by Ting would so there are other building codes and standards that I don't think any of these other bills require that those other building codes and standards include a discussion of EV charging. So it's incorporating EV charging standards with all of these other building design and construction standards that exist all over the California, in the California code. So you can see a lot of these are very related, and then a dynamic that you often have in the legislature is that there can be very, very, very similar bills, one in the Assembly, one in the Senate. Sometimes that's deliberate, sometimes it's not deliberate. So this time there's another one, SB 1482 by Allen, that again is about mandatory standards for EV charging related to parking spaces in multi-unit dwellings. And in this case, it includes signage, which is, I know some of us have a broken record spiel about, hey, we need better signage. So that might help address that a bit. I skipped past the SB 833 because I'm going to go into that one in detail. It's the one on the top there. And this is the Community Energy Resilience Act of 2022. And I think I go into it right now. Yes, that's my next slide. So those were all the bills. Actually, those were not all the bills related to electric vehicles and electric vehicles. There were a few more, but they're a little bit weirder and not quite ready for prime time. Some of them, there are a couple that look like spot bills. Spot bills are bills that are introduced and they don't really have any there yet. They just put them in and they want to amend in the specifics of the bill later. So right now there's not much to say about them. Others are just seem to be less relevant to the Auto Association. So I don't have a link to later in this slideshow. There's a link to a more thorough listing of all the bills. So SB 833, this is the same bill as that the Climate Center sponsored last year with a different number because it was killed in the Assembly Energy Committee. So Community Energy Resilience Act of 2022. And why should North Bay Electric Auto Association care about this? So this bill, as a reminder to folks who don't remember what SB 99 was all about last year, it would provide state level resources, tools, and funding to local governments like, the County of Sonoma or any of the 9 cities in Sonoma County, local governments, to put together community energy resilience plans, meaning distributed energy resources at, say, critical facilities, or developing a resilience hub for folks to go, evacuation site where there's power, using clean renewables and energy storage and whatnot. So like mini microgrids. And significantly for this group, resilience includes integration of EVs in the form of vehicle to anything, vehicle to grid, vehicle to building, vehicle to what have you, critical facility. as a grid resource and also as a resilience resource. Now, the bill itself doesn't have funding in it, but there is a budget play that is parallel to this, close to $2 billion currently, for both the planning piece of it, but also the most of it is actually for deployment, meaning that this bill, there is a funding play underway in the budget to make it possible to actually build stuff. So there's a link to a fact sheet there. There's a link to a coalition sign-on letter that I would invite North Bay to sign on to. It's actually going to be in committee on the Senate Energy Committee this coming Monday. Way too late to sign on to the coalition letter. You know, going forward, I would invite North Bay Electric Auto Association to consider that. This is the logo mix at the top of the current letter, and you can see that the San Joaquin Valley Electric Auto Association is on that letter. I'd love to be able to add North Bay as it goes to the Senate. It'll go to one other committee probably, and then it actually might go to more than one other committee, but I'm guessing it's only going to go to one other committee and then to the Senate floor. So at that point, it would be good to have North Bay on here. And then there will be more opportunities when it gets over to the assembly side. I wanted to talk a little bit about the budget. And so the state is where the action really is, because yes, California got some money from the federal infrastructure bill, but it's really not all that much, and it's really unclear how much of it's going to trickle down for actual EV infrastructure or supporting people getting their butts into EVs or anything like that. So I don't know that that's going to end up being super significant. I was hopeful at first, but I think most of the action is in the state. And so there's currently totally for climate action in the state about $37 billion. There's in the current budget draft budget, there's 22 billion in new additional funding for climate action. About 6 billion of that is, and it adds up to 37 billion because there was already some money that's not yet spent in that budget from last year. 6 billion in new funding for clean transportation, so a total of about 10 billion with the 3 something that was left over from last year. So there's about $10 billion in the state coffers for just for clean transportation. And I've got a little bit of a breakout coming up soon that shows a little bit of how that's broken out. A lot of this money is going to go, is aimed toward primarily historically underserved communities. A lot of it is going to be doled out via competitive grants, for better or worse. There is always what's called a May revise, meaning that after tax day and the state gets to know sort of what its tax receipts are, it looks at that and then revises the budget in whatever ways it deems necessary based on what the results of the state's tax coffers is. And they have, by law, they need to approve the budget by June 15th. So yeah, I already talked about the federal, so I just wanted to share this little bit of a breakout of where some of these fundings, this is from the 22-23 fiscal year budget, and you can see that from 2021, there's that 3.9 billion left over. Some of these monies are for passenger vehicles, some of them are for trucks and buses and bigger industrial type equipment, and then there's other stuff, consumer awareness, whatnot. So there's a little over 6 billion total going toward zero emission vehicles in the coming years, and so for a total of about 10 billion. So this is a detail from the current budget. Some resources. This is the spreadsheet that I was talking about that has more bills than you probably would care to want to have to paw through, but you can paw through it at your leisure. This is the Climate Center's bill tracking page. This is the budget summary that chart that I just showed you came from. And so that's an enormous document that's got a lot of detail in it. That's my contact info there. And then there should be one more page here. Where'd it go? Oh,
Did you lose it? I haven't.
there
Yeah,
it is. Shameless. Where'd it go?
do it again.
Okay, shameless plugs. So we do have, the Climate Center has Climate Safe California, aiming to accelerate some of the climate targets in the state. And we have over 1,500 endorsements, and individuals can endorse. And I don't know if the North Bay Electric Auto Association has endorsed, but I would invite scrutiny of our Climate Safe California. It has pathways for how to accelerate the greenhouse gas targets to 2030 from 2045. And Professor Dan Kamen of UC Berkeley has done a lot of that pathway analysis for how to actually do it. Technically possible, politically and socially very difficult, but it aims to get us on track by 2025 to be at a net negative, actually, because we're talking about sequestration too by the year 2030. And then we have a policy summit coming up in the real world, in the 3D world, on Sacramento on April 18th. It's there's a registration fee, so just be aware of that. And yeah, and we will have a breakout on sustainable mobility that'll be discussing electric vehicles, and there'll be some discussion of that in the plenary too, so that's got some relevance to electrification of transportation. And that is my presentation. So happy to answer any questions folks might have.
Well, I saw a hand up from Bruce. Is that just still up there, Bruce, or? Okay.
Sorry, no, my hand, I thought that had auto pull down a while ago.
Okay.
Sorry.
Lowell, you have your hand up.
Oh no, I meant to bullet down also and didn't do it.
Okay. Well, I have my hand up, which I put up for Woody. Hey, Woody, a number of the ones on the first two slides, as far as I know, those are incorporated in Title 24, Part 11 for the 2022 listing, which should get approved in June and then would be enforced in 2023 for building codes. That has to do with the multifamily and the number of charge stations. I've been a planning commissioner now in 2 cities, and both those cities already have that at a city level, already have requirements for substantial percentages of spaces. And one city that I've been talking to now has, for multifamily, you have to have a charge capability in every parking space that's allocated for a housing unit. On the V2X and V2G, V2Home, you know that we had a meeting with Jeff Cyphers of Snow McLean Power, and his point was V2G he didn't think was going to happen, but V2Home he thought was very, very important, and they're supporting that. The second Thursday of next month, I belong to something that the Climate Center started, but I've continued doing. We have a North Bay cohort, which spun off from the Climate Center's community energy resilience effort. And one of our members is a PG&E manager who's responsible for rolling out microgrids. And one of her associates is responsible for rolling out PG&E's V2G or V2H program. And she's going to present to us in a week or so. And we've seen a lot of equipment, but it turns out the regulations are in the way. And it's nice to see that the utilities are actually working also to help push us forward. If you want to join that meeting, by the way, if you're interested, let me know and I'll put you on the list. Tor will be there, as well as the other folks that I meet with on a regular basis on these topics. Anyway, those are my points. It'd be interesting to see, check out Title 24. This was the work that Steve Pierce and I were doing. The investigation says there's a lot happening there. And maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I gave a presentation from CARB, who's responsible for those regulations. So without legislation, they can actually change these things. And they have been planning on that, and it has to do with the cost effectiveness rules and compliance with pretty much AB 32 and what they have to do every 3 years. So I covered that last time as far as what they were planning on doing, and it was a lot in this area. Zeno.
Well, before we move on, did you want me to respond to any of that?
Oh,
That was a
sure,
lot
sure,
of
sure,
stuff,
sure.
and you know, so yeah, I mean, I've talked to staff about this.
Sorry.
I've talked to staff about this issue because it's been brought up in the past, and it's a big question circulating. You're not the only one to ask it. The reason why AB 965 is there is that, yes, there's several agencies, Building Standards Commission and a housing entity and ARB and in Title 24. What I've been told is that they've actually been charged with getting this all standardized throughout the state for several years now, and they haven't done it. These authors would actually love to not have to have these bills floating. They would like the agencies to be doing their work. The agencies have been dragging their feet. And so, this needs to be, yes, you can find any given city and the one that you're a planning commissioner on that have good, standards for this kind of thing at the local level. This is to standardize it at the statewide level and to get the job done, because currently it's not done. So that's the main thing that I've been told relative to that. And why are these bills there, and why are there so many of them? And so each one of them is trying to touch on a little piece, and there is a lot of overlap, but that's what I've been told on that.
Well, it would be interesting to look at what CARB actually has outlined. And part of what they had to do, because this is also in the legislation, is they have to prove cost effectiveness before they put a regulation in place. And they've been able to do that in the last 2 years. Zeno.
Yeah, I had a question about how these funds are distributed. So in some cases, are there like local government that have to do a grant application? And is it not true that in many cases, municipalities don't have the staff capacity to write these grants? And is there some attention to this problem that you see in Sacramento, that maybe you can very easily ask for a grant to apply for a grant or something like that? Because there seemed to be in Sonoma County, we had a lot of noticing, like even Santa Rosa has a bigger staff, that they don't apply for these grants because their staff is already overworked, and they may not have even the skill to do this particular grant in staff, but they don't have the money. So that's kind of my question. How is it distributed? Is there a grant application process, and how can we help in Sonoma County these staffs to be more active to getting these grants? And is there attention to this problem in Sacramento?
Yeah. So yeah, is there attention to this problem in Sacramento? Yeah, I was just in a session yesterday that was from a third-party entity, a non-governmental organization, and what they're working on a project specifically to address this issue of the difficulty of all kinds of entities. And you think about especially smaller cities in historically underserved communities, small towns out in the Central Valley that absolutely do not have the capacity, the ability to prevail in a competitive grant situation. So it's a problem, it's an issue. And, maybe it went by quickly, but, when I said a lot of them are going to be distributed via competitive grants, I said for better or worse. And, and I think I'm coming to the conclusion in most cases, it's for the worse. Competitive granting, I don't think is a great model for how to make this happen. So I was going to put a slide up there that had some of these channels where the funds will be funneled through. It's things like the California Vehicle Rebate Program or the Clean Cars for All program or the Cal EVIP program on EV charging. So it's these various programs under the California Energy Commission or the Air Resources Board or Office of Planning and Research, OPR, and the Governor's Office in the Strategic Growth Council. I mean, there's a number of state agencies, and then there's the California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority that has some funding available, funding options. So this is a piece of the puzzle that'll become known, I think, later this year, how much each of these agencies is going to get and how they're going to dole it all out. And they dole it out, they dole it out in a number of ways, but a big part of that is competitive grants. So it's, it's a great question. And I think, maybe somewhere along the way, we should probably have a thing that delves into what are all the places where these, and then Jerry, of course, there's like MTC, funds can come through the MTC sometimes.
Yeah.
Didn't mention that one. BAAQMD, the Air District, there's funds that come through there sometimes. So there's this mishmash, hodgepodge, crazy quilt of entities that funnel these funds. And so that topic alone could be a whole presentation.
Mm-hmm. David Heacock, hands up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anybody knows anything about what's going on with like rebate programs for 2- and 3-wheel smaller vehicles and whether anybody's even looking at that. I think we've talked a little bit about the affordability of these, ultra heavy 4-passenger trucks and cars and stuff, but nobody's really talking about the fact that you can get a 3-wheel vehicle, which is well less than $20,000, and the rebates seem to be minuscule. But I think it would solve some of the problems of building them faster because they're smaller, obviously, and also for like low income people that don't have $60,000 to buy an electric vehicle. So a lot of people are commuting. And obviously the complaints are, well, it's costing me a lot of money to fill up my tank in my diesel truck to get, 25 miles or something, when in reality, they could have potentially an enclosed electric vehicle, that the cost would be way less for them. So, and if the rebates were there, which I don't think they are, I don't even, I'm asking the question, is anybody even considered? I think I saw $750 for a 2-wheel vehicle, but I don't even know if a 3-wheel vehicle is even being included, because it can be more like a car than like a motorcycle. I mean, they're, enclosed. So is there any news out there or anybody looking at that potential to get those rebates up? I mean, to something more reasonable, like, I don't know, $1,500, $2,500, and along with the federal, you would put these in a very economical position to buy one.
Yeah, I mean, I quick answer for me is that no, I don't know what the status is of any kind of incentives or rebates there are for those kinds of less expensive vehicles. I mean, I will say that programs like Clean Cars for All is, it's designed to get, a big part of it is designed to get old, gross polluters off the road. And so, there's also, I think with the kind of vehicles you're talking about, a cultural shift involved as well, and something that's not as familiar to folks. So I think there are other challenges with that. I mean, I like the idea. I've seen some of these vehicles and some of the videos of them. It would, so I mean, I'd like to see that emerge. I don't know specifically if those are being incentivized. It's most of the push, I think, is to switch out people from gas guzzlers to EVs, as opposed to, say, getting somebody into some kind of mobility vehicle like that, where before they didn't have maybe anything, so it's there's a lot to that, and it's a big question mark for me mostly.
And part of that also is the infrastructure to support it for the 2-wheel and 3-wheel vehicles instead of just on the roadway. That came up at the MTC because there was complaint by the Policy Advisory Council that there's no incentive for the money that's doled out by the MTC for communities to do projects which support those and isolate them, for instance, from the heavy and faster traffic. And so the staff said they're going to investigate how that could actually be incorporated.
The one thing I see is that you got one side saying, hey, go buy an electric vehicle. And the other side say, yeah, they're $60,000 or something. And that's not really true either. So
it was when I shopped.
Well, if one side said, go buy an electric vehicle, and the other side's, or the both sides agreed to, hey, you can buy one for $15,000, people might be incentivized to do that, especially at $6 a gallon for gas, for Christ's sake. I mean, I'm looking heavily at one myself, a couple actually. So anyway.
Zeno, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I defer to Sonia. She put something in the chat that maybe follows up on this.
Okay. And David Harris?
No, I'm giving my slot to Sonia.
Right.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah.
It was a bike link. Go ahead, Sonia.
What was that, David? Yeah, I put in a calbike.org link into the chat because I just Googled it and it looked like AB 117. I don't know the status, but CARB is rolling out a program for e-bike subsidies starting in July, and you can learn more. But maybe if I research further, we'll find that AB 117 is still pending. I'm not sure. But to your point, someone can research this further. I think there is some money out there. I'd heard about it before, and so I think this program's going out through CARB. And appreciate your comments, Woody, about how some of these programs are better ways to get money out. I'd never thought of that before, but certainly competitive grants sound kind of challenging.
Yeah. All right, David, you want to jump in?
Yeah, a few months ago, there was something about the federal subsidies for bicycles. And I mean, that is kind of the 3 wheels kind of fall in a crack between electric bikes and standard, automobiles. And I've just been surprised. I've been interested in the 3-wheel covered things that are considered cycles that can go on bike paths, etc. And the fact that I found one in the last 2 weeks on the street here in Santa Rosa for the first time. I mean, and my incentive partly is to get one just to give some visibility to them because, most you don't know they exist if you don't see them. But there's a German 3-wheel that a bakery here in Santa Rosa has, and I followed him to his home and talked to him. But it is in the cycle area, and not only I was unaware of the state bill, Sonia, but there is money in federal legislation for incentives that would include in electric bikes, these 3-wheel covered bikes, and but getting enough visibility that people even know they exist is the first problem.
Hey, Jerry, you need to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. The question was, what do you want to wrap that up?
Well, no, just to say that I was just saying I'm not super familiar with them. Everything folks are saying is sort of jogging my memory on certain stuff. And I do remember Biden actually specifically, I think he said in one of his speeches or talks, everything down to e-bikes. He talked about e-bikes, or someone from his administration did. And Sonia mentioning AB 117, I do recall that. I think it was a 2020 bill. It is, it is law. So I just dropped that in the chat. So yeah, I think that, and like devil in the details, or, good stuff in the details. I think as these new monies from the California surplus and from the federal infrastructure package become, as the rollout of it becomes more clear, we might find that there will be, I would imagine there will be funding for this kind of thing.
All right, we're right on time here. I haven't changed the links from the last time. Nobody sent me cool links with videos. There's some really interesting ones here. They're still interesting to look at, different reviews and different ideas. Our next meeting will be April the 9th. I probably will not attend, which is only the second meeting that I've missed since I've moved to Sonoma County. We don't have anybody lined up for a presentation. So if somebody has an idea, please send it to NBEAA team at googlegroups.com. So we have some material, and well, maybe I will make the meeting. Let's see, that'll be 7 o'clock in the morning where I'll be. So maybe I'll make the meeting. We'll see. Any parting thoughts? Otherwise, thank you all, and have a good month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry. Thanks, all.
All right,
Adios.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Woody.